Welcome to a new season of Alexandra TV. I am so excited about this new season. I am so excited about all the surprises and the new episodes that we have in store for you. And to kick off this new season, I decided to do a little story time and share a bit of my story. So if you want to know my story, well, stay tuned and watch. This is Alexandra Villarroel Abrego and welcome to another episode of Alexandra TV. I am so excited about today's episode because many of you have asked me to share my story. You know, many of you have been with me maybe for just a few months or a few years, and maybe you don't really know my story and how I started, you know, how I started my business, how I changed my life, because I really did. So what I'm going to be doing is taking you on a journey. You know, over the next few months, over the next year, I'm going to be taking you on a personal and professional development journey. If you are familiar with the A.V.A pyramid, you know that the A.V.A pyramid has 9 different levels, the 9 stages of personal and professional development. And what I want to do through these Alexandra TV episodes, and you know, of course, also the A.V.A launches of our new programs and products, well, what I want to do is I want to take you slowly on this journey, starting from the first stage, which is, you know, the stage of awareness, going all the way up to the final and, you know, the pinnacle of the pyramid, which is enlightenment. So what I'm going to be doing on top of course, you know, sharing episodes where I teach you the best strategies and things like that. Well, I also thought that it could perhaps be interesting if I share how I also went through these 9 different levels. How over the past decade and a little more really, I was able to go from a level of awareness all the way up, you know, from awareness to change to awakening to transformation and so on and so on. And I'm going to be doing so by sharing my story with you in different parts. So this is basically part 1 of how it all started almost, you know, 12 years ago at this point. And every time the wheel turns, the A.V.A wheel of the year, I'm going to be sharing second, third, and so on of my story. Now, if when I talk about the A.V.A pyramid and the A.V.A wheel of the year, you don't really know what I'm talking about, well, I invite you to go in the description below this video. There's going to be a link where you can download for free the A.V.A pyramid and the A.V.A wheel of the year. The A.V.A pyramid is a pyramid where there's 9 different levels of personal and professional development, and the A.V.A wheel of the year is the 8 sacred days of the year, and we are launching the new versions to all of our programs in this wheel, you know, by following this wheel of the year. So anyways, if you want to have more information, know what I'm talking about, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, just go in the description below this video. The link also will appear here on the screen and you can download that for free. It's a little gift that we have for you. All right, so I'm going to take you on a trip down memory lane and we're going to go back in time. We're actually going to go 12 years ago, which is crazy that it's been 12 years ago. The year 2008. The year 2008 for me, I think, was really a pivotal year in my life. It was the year where everything started to really change. If I can say it like that, where my life started. I feel like that's when my life began. You know, before that, I was a teenager. I turned 18 on December 2nd, 2007. Then in the year 2008, that's when I moved out of my parents' house, you know, and I went to live on my own with a friend of mine. But something happened before that. Now looking back, I realized that that day was very important. It was specifically, I remember, January 1st, 2008. It was the first day of the year. So just to put you in context of what was happening in my life at that point, you know, on January 1st, 2008, I had just turned 18. I was still not done with high school, actually, because in my teenage years, I was a very rebel teenager. I was a bad kid, I remember. You know, when I was in high school, I got into a lot of trouble at school, but also with authorities. Just overall, just a bad teenager. And on my last year of high school, for the final exams, I didn't show up. I just didn't go to my final, like I didn't care. I was like, I'm not going, I don't care. I'm gonna go like to the mall with my friends. Like I really didn't care. But of course, at some point after when I was done with high school, I was like, well, I kind of need to have a high school diploma. It's kind of the minimum. So I enrolled to adult school. Now adult school, what it is, if perhaps you don't have it where you are, It's just a school where people who are, you know, adults, they go to get the final credits, you know, do final exams, study and everything to get their high school diploma. And especially adult schools are for people who, let's say, immigrate to a country, or people who, you know, didn't finish school because maybe they had kids and they decided to stop school and put it on pause. So they go their adult school, right? So it's the place you go to finish that. So I was, at that point, I had enrolled in adult school in September of 2007. I went, but I was still bad. I was still a bad kid. And I got kicked out of the school. I will always remember it was the day before I turned 18. On December 1st of 2007, there was something that happened. Maybe it's a story for another time. Something happened and I got kicked out to a point where I wasn't even allowed to be near the school. Like there was this thing that I wasn't allowed to be near the school. So at that point, on January 1st of 2008, I wasn't going to school. I was 18. I didn't have my high school diploma. I was working at this just job, like it was a call center, very minimum pay. And I was just, you know, very lost. I had really nothing in my life. I was also in a relationship at the time and with my first boyfriend. So we had met when I was 16. He was 20. We'd been together for 2 years at that point. And at the beginning of the relationship, I was very much in love with him. I think it was more of an infatuation in a way, as I look back today, because I remember when I was in high school, when I first started high school, he was going to my high school. He was 4 years older than me, and he was the most popular guy in high school. He was the coolest. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone respected him. Everyone was very scared of him at the time. And in the city where I lived, like in the part of the city where I lived, everyone knew who he was, and they were scared of him. And for me, at 16, going out with the coolest guy, and he's 4 years older than me, and everyone respects him, it was like, wow, at the beginning. But then what happened is that during the relationship, I fell in love with someone else. And the man that I was in love with, the young man that I was in love with because he was my age, at that moment, on January 1st, 2008, he was in prison. He went to prison in December of 2007, and I was heartbroken. I was devastated because I remember right before he had been to prison, I was going to end the relationship that I had, and he was also in a relationship, and he was going to end it. We were going to be together, and then destiny. You know, that's why I love things, and I never fight with destiny, because things happen exactly how they're supposed to happen. So he wasn't in prison at that moment, not for anything, you know, very bad, but just doing bad things, you know, that us teenage kids, we were doing at the time. So I was in this relationship that I've been in for 2 years, but it was on my side loveless, and it was also not a good relationship. And the reason why I think I fell in love with someone else while being with someone was because the relationship was just not good very often, and it was very abusive verbally. And I have to say, it wasn't just him. I was also the one being very abusive. You know, it was really a relationship where that was the dynamic. And I thought at the time in my early 20s that that's how relationships had to be, you know, that's passion. No, it's not. If you're in a relationship like that, where you're constantly disrespecting one another or insulting, that's not what love is. It just really isn't. But going back, January 1st, 2008, I was in a time in my life, like I said, where I was very lost and confused. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing, and is that I wanted to end that relationship that I had, because I knew it wasn't good, but I did not have the strength to just leave for some reason. Every time I would leave, we would end up again back together. You know, he would pursue me, and then I would just give in, and we would end up together. But January 1st, something happened. I remember the night before, on December 31st, of course, we celebrated New Year's. We were with his friends. And I remember we got into, again, you know, a big argument, and we started fighting and insulting one another. And it was just always like that. So on January 1st, that day, I was cold with him. He was cold with me. And we were just, you know, annoyed at each other in a way. And I remember he had to go see someone. So he took me with him. We were in his car. And as we were driving to the place, he started, I don't even know how it started, but we started an argument about money. And that was a recurring theme. He had a lot of money. He would spoil me a lot, take me nice places, buy me things. I never asked him to, but he would always do that. You know, I was 16 when we started dating. And at some point in the relationship, he started to kind of put that in my face. You know, I do all of this for you. You're so ungrateful. You know, you're such a B, you know, like things like that. And I would just very often, you know, fight back. But at that point, I remember that day, I was exhausted. I was done fighting. I remember at some point we arrived where we had to be. We're sitting in the car and he's continuing. You know, he's insulting me. He's saying, you know, mean things to me. And I'm just looking outside. Like, I don't feel, I remember not, I will always remember how I felt nothing. How what he was saying before, you know, before I would cry and argue back. But it was like, it meant nothing. I didn't care about what he was saying. And I was looking outside at the snow because it was January. If you live in the north side of the world, you know, in January it's very cold. There's a lot of snow outside. And I was just looking. Everything was white. You know, those days, again, if you live here in the north side, when it's like sometimes it's sunny, but the sky is all white and then the snow is white. So it's just a very white, bright light outside. And I was just looking, and for some reason, as he was telling me things like, you are so ungrateful and you're a B and I do all of this for you and look at how you are with me. I just remember turning around. Like, I felt this, for some reason I said that. And I just told him, you'll see. One day I'm gonna be so rich that I'm gonna come back to you and I'm gonna give you a check of $10,000 for everything that you say you did for me. And I don't know where that came from. Again, put you in the context. Where I was in my life right now, it was not headed for a place where I could one day write someone a check of $10,000 or not even like $2,000. You know, at the time for me, $10,000. And the reason why I said $10,000 because it was huge at the time. For me, that's like, oh my God, that's like half a year of paychecks, you know? But I just remember feeling like that could happen. And when I said that, he started laughing. He started laughing, and I remember him telling me, you're gonna do that for me? He was like, you are nothing without me. Like, I made you who you are. You're never gonna be nothing without me. Who do you think you are? You're no one. And I remember he left the car, he slammed the door. And I remember watching him walk in the snow, and the noise, the sound of the snow. If you're in the north, you know the sound of when you walk in the snow with boots and the sound it makes. I still remember that sound. And in that moment, I realized two things. The first thing was that for some reason, what I just said to him, it could happen. There was this feeling inside of me that maybe I will be okay without him, that I think I could be someone. Again, I started dating him when I was 16 years old. He was my first boyfriend. He was older than me. He was very, you know, popular and respected, and he had money. And for a long time, when I started dating him, my identity was, that's his girlfriend. You know, that's his, don't talk to this girl, be careful, because if not, he's gonna come for you, you know. So that's his girlfriend, you know. That was my identity. He was no longer Alexandra. I was this guy's girlfriend, right? So for a moment in that car, I just felt like maybe besides being his girlfriend, I could be something else and I could do something else in my life. And the second thing I knew at that moment is that it was over. For the first time, like we broke up a lot of times in those past 2 years, but I knew it was over. I knew I was done. But I also knew I had to do something in order to not give in when he was gonna come back. And I remember that same night calling my friend, a friend that I had just met actually at the adult school where I was going. We really got along together, and I knew she was looking for a place to move out of her parents' house. I called her, I said, let's move in together. Let's find a place. And we started looking right at that moment. You know, we started searching for an apartment. In May of 2008, we found a place finally. And in August, we moved in to our first apartment together. When I look back at that time of my life, those first months, that first year in that apartment 401, I remember with the girls, we would always say, oh, it's the apartment 401 is the place to be. That's where you want to be. And it's true. It was the place to be. We were two 18-year-old girls. Our girlfriends, our friends were all also our age. It was the place to be. I mean, every single week we threw parties. Almost every night we would always go out. I remember in the living room of the apartments, there was this wall that we painted in red, and we wrote on top of it, "Welcome to the good life." We spent like an entire night with nice letters, you know, like painting the letters to put like nicely, "Welcome to the good life." The song from Kanye West, "Welcome to the Good Life," just came out. And it was just really, we felt like we were living the good life. I mean, we were living, truthfully, we were living the dream of like an 18-year-old, you know, just being with a friend and having fun. I remember some nights, you know, it was like a Tuesday night, and we were like, oh, let's just go to the dep and buy some candy and wine, you know, cheap wine and some chips, and let's just drink and eat and watch movies. And we were always saying like, it's funny how even when we're doing nothing, when it's just a regular Tuesday night, we're doing something because we're together and we're having fun. And it was honestly a blast. The first week that we moved there, we moved on August 1st, I remember, of 2008. And that first week, it's crazy. In 1 week, in 7 days, I went from having $0 in debt to having $20,000 in debt. In 7 days. Why? Because when you turn 18, what happens is that all of a sudden you have access to credit cards, and then you can open all kinds of credit cards. And I was just opening whatever, you would go to a store to buy furniture and they say, you want to open it? Yeah, sure, open it, go ahead. So I would just open and open credit cards where the interest rate was like 19%, 24%, 29%. And no one teaches you this, unfortunately, when you're young, that, well, you have to I knew I had to pay it back, but I didn't know the interest rate was going to hit so hard, So I went from, like I said, having $0 in debt in 1 week going to 20,000 because we wanted nice things. Our apartment was nice. We wanted to make it pretty. We wanted to have beautiful furniture and things like that. Things that truthfully we could not afford at the time. I was about to start a new job, again, at just a call center. It was paying me a little more than the one that I had before. But even with that job, I could not afford those things like that. I just couldn't. But I was 18. I was young, wild, and free. That's what I was. I remember after that first week of being with my friend in the apartment, we had, decorated. We made sure everything was nice and perfect. And then we threw 3 housewarming parties for our different groups of friends. And what was crazy about what happened at the time is that, the young man that I mentioned, that was my big first love. And it really was, when I look back, I feel like my first boyfriend, I loved him in a different way. But that other young man, I was so in love with him. And I feel like he felt the same way. And it was just this crazy, passionate, but very unhealthy love, very unhealthy love. But it was still nevertheless a big first love of mine. And he came out of prison that same week. Exactly. I remember, I think it was like on August 8th, he came out of prison. And then he came to, of course, to see me. And it was just beautiful months. What followed after that, it was a lot of celebration, a lot of parties. It was a lot of having fun. It was great. However, at some point, that lifestyle and that life started to catch up, right? And life started to send me a lot of different signs where life was like, whoa, wait a minute. You're not going in the right direction. And for a long time, I ignored those signs. Just to give you an example, I had started a new job, right? And I really liked at the beginning that new job. And we were just a bunch of young people and we were having fun. We'd always go out after work. And one night, a few months after I started, we went to this bar, but with everyone. It was like the supervisors, the managers, everyone. We all went to this bar together. And at the time, Neo just came out with the song Miss Independent, right? So that was my song and my friend's song. We would always listen to that song. And I was like, I got it. It's on me, guys. Bottles on me, drinks on me. I am Miss Independent. So that worked at the beginning, right? But here's what happened. I remember that night, we went to the bar. We were all just having a great time. Towards the end of the evening, I drink already, right? So I'm kind of like, I'm happy, right? So what I say is, shots on me, shots for everyone. There's about like 100 people, right? Shots on me, guys. Jack Downs for everyone. Shots on me. When I go to pay for those shots that everyone already drank, right? My card, and not my bank card, not my debit card, my credit card, because I knew that in my bank account I didn't have money. So I put it on my credit card, so my credit card got declined. And I remember I was mortified. I was like, they just drank the shots. What am I going to do now? I don't know what I'm going to do. But a friend of mine at that job, he was like, don't worry, I got it. I was like, okay, I'll give you back the money tomorrow, have a paycheck. It was like a Wednesday night or something. So on Thursday we had a paycheck. And I remember going back home that night and thinking to myself, oh my God, I just hit, in a way, rock bottom financially, right? Because that meant that I didn't have money in my account. I didn't have any savings and all my credit cards were maxed out. And at that point I was like, what am I gonna do? Now I was literally living paycheck by paycheck and barely even able to pay, those credit cards because the interest rate was so high. So little moments like that happened a lot in that year where life was sending me signs, right? Life was telling me, hey, slow down. you're not going in the right direction. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the signs that life sent me because some of them are actually very still personal that I don't talk about it. I never really talk about it. Maybe one day, maybe in like a second book or something, I'll do that. But I remember one, and if you've watched me in conference live, you know, I share this story where it was exactly 1 year that we were living in the apartment with my friend. And of course, as always, we decided to throw a celebration. I mean, that's what we would always do. We would just find excuses to throw parties, right? So it was a 1 year celebration of living in the apartment, August of 2009. At that point, I was 19 years old. It had been a year that we were partying hard, living it up, and just having a blast and not caring about the future or what we were gonna do with our lives. That night, drinks were flowing. We were having a good time, you know, we were having a good night. But I remember clearly that leading to that night, that summer of 2009, I was tired already of the partying. It was the same things with the same people, going to the same places, doing every weekend. I was starting to get really tired of that life, to be honest with you. But that night, something happened. I remember we're all celebrating, and then I get into this verbal argument with that young man that I was with, that I was in love with. And we start going back and forth, insulting each other. Again, I thought at the time that was normal, that's how relationships were supposed to be. And I think he also thought that it was normal. I mean, we all thought it was normal. All of our friends were there and they were just listening to us and they were like, whatever, you know, they're fighting again. It's just normal, but it's not okay. You know, it's normal to have arguments in a relationship, but not to the point where it escalates, where you insult each other and you say bad names. That's not how love is supposed to be. I didn't know that at the time, right? And we were just arguing, and I was used to that, to the verbally being abusive. Again, me to him and him to me. But then what happened is that for the first time, he pushed me. He pushed me on the glass table that was in the dining room. Now, thank God the glass table didn't break. But I remember he pushed me and everyone got really scared. I remember our best friend, that we had the same best friend, who was still a friend of mine actually. He went and he grabbed him. He was like, what are you doing? And everyone got really scared. All my girlfriends, they came like, oh my God, what is happening? And we were crying, I was crying, it was very dramatic. That night I went to the room, he slept on the couch, but at some point in the evening, he came in the room and we talked about it and we kind of said, okay, sorry. But I knew it was different at that point because before that, it was always verbally abusive. And very often, unfortunately, as men and women, we think that because it's just verbal and just words, we think that it's not violent. But it is. It's the same. It is just as violent. But because that night, for the first time, he put his hands on me, now all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, he put his hands on me. But again, insulting someone and being mean and saying bad words is the same. It's still as violent, right? And I remember we fell asleep on my bed, and what happened that night is something that I will always remember. It was I really think the moment where I kind of had that moment of awareness, right, which is the first level of the A.V.A pyramid. I had a dream that night, and in that dream I was walking alone in an aisle. I remember it was cold and dark, and I think it was like maybe fall in my dream because there were leaves on the floor and I was walking on them, and it was the sound of leaves when you walk on them, and I felt like someone was following me, and I looked back and there was this man just following me and getting closer and closer to me. At some point I stopped, I turned around and he looked at me and I looked at him and he said, come with me, in my dream. And I remember in the dream telling him, I can't, I have to stay. And then he said to me, why do you want to stay? Are you happy where you are? And I just remember that in my dream I asked myself, am I happy where I am? And then I woke up, remember looking around me in my nice bedroom with all my 29% interest rate furniture that I had there. In the living room, I still heard, people that probably were still partying at like 5 a.m. or who knows, they were just still drinking. I could hear the drinks and everything. Next to me, I had a glass, of alcohol, and my head was hurting. I just didn't feel good. And the other side, there was this young man that truly was a big love of mine, but I knew that especially after that night, I knew that this was not going to work, that this was not the person for me. And I always felt deep down for some reason that I could do something with my life. And I knew that he wasn't headed that same direction. And I asked myself, am I happy where I am? And the answer was no. I was not happy where I was. After that night, I feel like without even realizing it, without even knowing, I was starting to look for answers to the question of, I'm not happy where I am, but now what? Like, what am I going to do about it? And that's what awareness is all about. Awareness, which is the first level of the A.V.A pyramid, is realizing that, okay, this is where I am in life. I'm not good where I am. Like, I'm not happy. Perhaps you in your life, you feel like you hit rock bottom in certain aspects of your life, and you know maybe you can do more and be more, but there's still the maybe, right? I remember at that point I was like, okay, I'm not happy where I am, but is this how life is supposed to be? Maybe this is how it is, you know, maybe that's just life, you know, and you're not supposed to be happy, you know, all the time. But I felt inside of me a yearning for maybe more. I remember that relationship that I had. After that, I kind of told him that maybe we should take some time off. Maybe, you know, we should, like, you know, spend time apart, because I felt like, okay, this was not going to work. I remember also one evening, that man that I was in a relationship with, right, when my first boyfriend, he was still contacting me. It had been almost 2 years, and he was still messaging me and you know, calling and things like that. And he wanted to see me. And for some reason, I felt, probably it was 2 weeks or a week after that happened, after that night, after that dream, I felt like I had to kind of close that chapter, right? And I said, okay, let's go for dinner. I remember we went for dinner that night. Then we went to a bar with all of his friends, and his friends were always really nice to me. So it was great, you know, to see them. But I remember him, he was just following me everywhere. He was trying to hold my hand. He was trying to kiss me. And at the end of the night, it got very emotional, and we had drank a lot. I remember that night. And one thing that I used to do with him, and it's crazy because I was 16, right? From 16 to 18 is that we would drink so much in the weekend, to a point where we couldn't control ourselves. And that's when it would get maybe violent and abusive, but, you know, verbally with him. And I remember that at the end of the night, he was just pouring his heart out, and he was saying how he wanted to be with me and how he missed me and how he loved me. And I remember me crying and telling him, I wish I could still love you, but I don't love you anymore. I don't feel it anymore. I'm sorry. I remember saying, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't do it. You know, I just don't feel anything. I remember that night he dropped me off home, and I could barely go up the stairs to my apartment. And I got home and I just kind of fell on the floor. And I remember having that moment, even if I was very intoxicated, very drunk, I remember thinking, I never want to feel like this again. I don't want to be this girl. This is not me. I don't want to be like this ever again. I remember that night kind of closed that chapter where, again, you know, I felt like I was no longer the girlfriend of this guy, you know? I felt like on January 1st of 2008, I said, I'm gonna try to create a new identity. I didn't know if it was possible, you know, to create my own life, to become this independent woman that I wanted to be. I did, and that kind of confirmed that, okay, yeah, I don't want to go from before. But I remember that night thinking, okay, but now I want to do more. You know, I want to be something else. Like, this is good, you know, this life now, I did this on my own. But now maybe I could do more, and maybe I could have more. And that is what awareness is all about. Awareness is realizing, okay, so this is where I am, but now maybe I could do more and have more. It's crazy to think about that. That's who I was and what was happening in my life 10 years ago, when now everything is so different. You know, I don't think I'm recognizable. I don't think my life is recognizable. And what I always think is how I'm probably, statistically speaking, I shouldn't be here, right? All the statistics would say that a girl like me is not supposed to have the life that I have. I mean, I was raised by a single immigrant mother and my grandparents, of course. You know, I grew up without a dad. I went to a public school where most of us, we were delinquents. I mean, most of us, we got into a lot of trouble with police and everything. I had a criminal juvenile record, you know, when I was young, because of fights and altercations and things like that. I didn't finish my high school. I finished it after, right? So I finally got my diploma, but it took me a long time to do that. You know, all of the odds were really against me. Like, where I am today, it should not have happened. The life that I have, it was not supposed to be a life for someone like me, and the life that I had. And, you know, I still live in the city of Montreal, and I see a lot of people who are still, you know, in that world, you know, in that world of drama and delinquents and just bad things, you know, and I remember how it felt to be there. And I'm so happy that I had that awareness moment, and that's where it all starts. So the reason why I'm sharing this, my story, and I'm going to be doing it in the next part, you know, part 2, part 3, to continue with what happened after, is because I want you to understand that no matter where you start, no matter where you come from, you really can do something. You really can create a life that you want. You have that choice, because as generic and cheesy as it may sound, if I did it, you can do it, because that's, I mean, from where I come from, it wasn't supposed to happen, but you can really make it happen if you have that first moment, you know, the moment of maybe you hit rock bottom in your life. But then in that moment, saying to yourself, okay, so this is where I am. This is not good, right? But what if? Awareness is about the what if. What if I could do something? What if I could be something? And I remember at that time when I started to take that decision, I had the doubts. I didn't know anyone around me who had created a great life. You know, I didn't know, you know, if it was even possible for me. But I tried, and I'm so happy I did. So that is that for today, for this first part of my story, but there's more, of course. There is more. And every time the wheel of the year, the A.V.A. wheel of the year will turn, we will go to the next part and the next part of the story, so that you can learn more about what happened, you know, over the past few years, and all the details and the little things that perhaps I've never shared, you know, in the past, so that you can maybe feel like, okay, so if this girl, you know, who really came from not much, could do something with her life, maybe I can too. That's really the goal of this little series that we're creating. So if you like this video, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and in the comments section, let me know if you've had your moment of awareness, you know, and what did it look like? How was it? I would love to read from you and to interact with you in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, for new episodes every week here on Alexandra TV. And that is it for today. I will see you very soon.